The Red Rag Riddle. Chapter 1. Goosebumps. It all started the day AC had his scheduled checkup with Dr. Kindheart, the dentist. Honk! Honk! Mrs. Virtuoson blew the horn. AC shook himself out of his daydreams, locked the back door of the house, and breathed in the sweet smell of early summer flowers drifting over the driveway. The gentle June breeze that touched his light brown hair invited him to play outside, but he couldn't. He had something important to do first. He was going to the dentist. It wasn't exactly his idea of fun on such a lovely summer morning. No, he'd rather clean the garage or meet up with a grizzly bear. Besides, I don't have a toothache, he thought. It wasn't a matter of choice, however, so he silently climbed into the front seat of the car and buckled his seatbelt. The spicy taste of cinnamon toothpaste still stung his lips, and the vinyl seats felt unusually stiff and uncomfortable. Maybe he was just imagining these things, though. "You're not afraid to go to the dentist, are you?" his mother questioned. She didn't see him grimace as she backed out of the driveway. He had been brushing every day, but sometimes he did it in a hurry, and, well, sometimes he was simply too tired to floss. "You could always buy new teeth like grandmothers when you're older," Racer had suggested. The words echoed in AC's ears and made him bite his lip. "What if I have to have a filling now? The dentist uses a drill for that, doesn't he?" Whirr. The sound in his head made him shiver as prickly goosebumps popped up in his arm. At the dentist's office, AC sat down in the only remaining seat, a green, scratchy cloth sofa with hard buttons that jabbed into his legs. The whirring and slurping sounds coming from behind the closed door gave him more goosebumps. He could only imagine what the drill jabbing into his teeth would feel like. It isn't always good to have a keen imagination, he concluded. "AC, the doctor's ready for you now." "Already? I just got here." Brr. AC felt a chill go up his neck. This visit wasn't getting any better. He walked into the examination room. There were the familiar funny-looking chair, strange metal equipment, and long, black, curly cords and tubes. His nose twitched. The room smelled clean, like a hospital. Then he noticed them. On the white countertop, lined up in a perfect row, tiny, sharp metal tools stared back at him. He knew for sure one of them must be a drill. AC slowly climbed into the chair. The assistant briskly clipped the blue, stiff paper bib on him, tilted back the chair, and promptly began cleaning his teeth with gritty peppermint paste. Yuck! AC immediately committed himself to proper toothbrushing procedures. When Dr. Kindheart stepped in, he extended his warm brown hand. "Well, hello, young man," he said politely. He briefly glanced over AC's chart. "It's been about a year since you were here last. Are you having any trouble with your teeth?" "Not a bit, sir," AC replied, hoping to make this visit as short as possible. "Well, let's have a look anyway, just for fun." "I knew it." AC's smile turned limp as he groaned inside. Dr. Kindheart moved the bright light until it shone on AC's face. "Okay, open wide." AC's cold hands began to sweat. He closed his eyes tightly and opened his mouth as wide as he could. His jaws locked. "Relax, I'm just going to check things out," Dr. Kindheart said. "Have you been brushing regularly?" Yes, the dentist's whole hand seemed to be in AC's mouth." Good, good." Dr. Kindheart poked and picked. "Does this hurt?" Dr. Kindheart poked and picked a little more. "No, answered AC, trying to swallow without choking. Saliva was pooling in his mouth. "Suction, please," said Dr. Kindheart. His assistant stuck the suction tube into AC's mouth and fished around a bit. It kind of tickled. Slup, slup, slup. "How about this?" Dr. Kindheart continued as he picked at AC's gums again. "It hurts. It'll..." AC's cheek muscles ached. Of course, it was hard for AC to talk without closing his mouth, so Dr. Kindheart directed his questions to Mrs. Virtuoson instead. "How are things at Highland School? Is it out for the summer?" "Yes," Mrs. Virtuoson sighed slowly. "We would really like to add computers to the learning centre, but extra money is hard to come by right now," she said quietly. "I understand," Dr. Kindheart nodded, moving to the other side of AC's mouth. "Well, you can be sure of that if it's God's will, he will provide a way, even if you can't see it right now." It sounded as though Dr. Kindheart never doubted that God was always in control. After several more minutes, he finally clicked off the bright light. Acey slumped down like a wet noodle. "Congratulations, Acey. I didn't find a single cavity." "Whew," Acey sighed on the outside. "Yippee," he shouted on the inside. Dr. Kindheart stepped on the pedal and Acey's chair inched back up straight. His checkup had not been so bad after all. Not even the gritty peppermint taste. Acey ran his tongue over his teeth. "Squeaky clean," Dr. Kindheart winked. Acey laughed and slid off the chair to thank him, and soon he and his mother were off to the park to meet some friends. Mrs. Virtuson told Acey she was pleased with his good report, but Acey was lost in thought. He didn't even hear her. Computers for school? Whoa! Our parents give us so much already. What can we do? Suddenly Acey's eyebrows shot up. When the car stopped, Acey hopped out the door and ran across the grass. Shaking her head, Mrs. Virtuson smiled. What has gotten into him? In the wooded park were parents, pets and children. Acey looked around and soaked in the fresh smell of cedar and pine trees. Spotting his friends, Acey waved his hands and yelled, "Over here!" Hapford, Racer, Pudge, Reginald, Sandy and Christy came running. "What are you so excited about, Acey?" Racer asked breathlessly. "Mother told Dr. Kindheart our school needs new computers, but there's no extra money right now." He paused and sucked in a deep breath before going on. "Wouldn't it be great if we could raise the money?" Stunned silence was the only reply. "You mean work for it? On summer vacation?" Pudge stammered in disbelief. "You have to be kidding. Maybe I didn't clean my ears out well enough." Sandy's hands flew to her hips. "Oh, come on, Pudge," she said. "I like Acey's idea. It's the least we can do. It might even be fun. But how can we do it?" she asked more thoughtfully. "If I were old enough to babysit, I'd be glad to give any money I made this summer," said Christy. "So would I." Sandy brushed her red bangs back out of her face. "I know," Racer spoke up, trying to sound important. His eyes looked mischievous. "Maybe we can invent a scientific money-making machine with gears, switches, pulleys and pipes, with smoke coming out the top. I'm sure we could do it if we figured out how the levers." "Racer, if you were a cartoon character, you'd have a light bulb over your head in every frame," Hapford broke in. "However, I think your money machine is against the law," Reginald observed. He swatted at a pesky gnat that tried to disguise itself among the freckles under his glasses. That accomplished, he continued, "Let's conduct a meeting and contemplate things we can do." Hapford wasn't sure exactly what that meant, but everyone listened because Reginald was so intelligent. The background yelling, barking and squealing faded as the group moved farther away from the playground. They traipsed over and plopped under a shady soapberry tree, while each waited for an idea to spring into his or her brain. Pudge twiddled his thumbs. Sandy stared at the clouds, and Christy watched a ladybug climb a leaf. "I have an idea," Happy suggested shyly. "Maybe we can have a lemonade stand or something. It gets really hot in the summer, so people get thirsty and we have a lemon tree." "Yeah," Racer agreed. "We can have a lemonade stand on Acey's busy street, and we can all work together. The boys can build the stand and the girls can decorate it." "Now we're getting somewhere," Acey cheered. "If we keep thinking about it, I'm sure we can come up with even more things to do. Pastor Aldrich always says we should do more than just pray. We should put feet to our prayers, put action behind our words. God will help us find ways to make money, if we ask for his help and are ready to work hard." Mrs. Virtuson glanced at them from a distance before turning back to the other mother. "What are the children talking about so seriously?" she wondered. No doubt the grey-suited stranger on the nearby bench wondered too. He peeked over the crumpled newspaper he was reading. With his big feet propped up on an old tree stump, his unmatched socks gave away his otherwise professional look. He folded the paper and hurriedly finished his sandwich, accidentally squirting mustard out the bottom. He sighed and pushed his thick glasses back up to the top of his broad nose. Then he wiped his mouth with a large red handkerchief. and forcefully scrubbed the yellow, fresh, gooey spot out of his black and white checkered tie until only a wet yellow blotch remained. Finally, he placed his blue fedora squarely on his grey, balding head, stood up, and walked off. Nobody even gave him a second look at the time.